information.
You know, so
So-
I said, screw it. So that, but anyway, that was when I said out loud, oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
And I don't
okay,
want
this
to
is
have.
gonna
Well,
stress him
I-
out. Just even
One of the things I want to do, she has this,
Yeah.
you know, needs
Yeah.
Plus where we
I-
say-
so
we
that's-
gotta rebrand first.
And then we're.
Yeah, I think she sent me an email yesterday. She just wants to get some ideas that wasn't right for a vote.
How long has it had?
I just got back from Nashville yesterday, so I hadn't had time to
So,
think about it.
my mom
Yeah.
friend Shirley used to live there. You remember Shirley? That's one of my mom's best friends.
And my office was like right on the water.
We're ready? Okay.
So crazy.
Let the cards on
Yep.
It was nice.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the City of Punta Gorda Historic Preservation Advisory Board meeting for October 23rd, 2025. And at this point, I'd like the clerk to call the roll call.
Absolutely. Don Good,
Here.
Lucille Ponte,
Here.
Charles Noble, Stephen Valdez,
Correct?
David Perry,
Present.
Don Good,
Again.
oh, Teresa Desquin.
Here. You don't need two of me, I bet.
No, you don't, I'm so sorry. Christopher Magliosi,
Here.
Beth Magnan. Thank you.
All right, this time, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the state.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our next meeting of the Historic Preservation Advisory Board will be November 20th of 2025. And at this time, I'd welcome any public comments. Anyone wishing to address the Historic Preservation Advisory Board on any subject may do so at the appropriate time during the meeting. Those who choose to speak must state their name for the record. Each person will be allowed to speak up to a maximum of 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to address the HPAB at the present moment? Going once, going twice, 3 times, and we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the September 25, 2025 meeting?
Steve Valdez, I so approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go on to the consent agenda, which is CA 50-2025. Is it? Are you up? We don't do anything?
I think what we did, I'm sorry, I think what we decided, we can always change it. You can pull something from the consent agenda.
Okay.
But if no one has anything to pull, we can just go approve the consent agenda.
Okay, no problem. All right. Having heard that, is everybody in a favor of CA 50-2025?
I think there's another number that you mean for the entire,
Oh,
there's 320 and 326.
320
that we
Shreve
want to
Street,
be clear,
replacement of siding for single-family residents. All in favor, or just,
I think we just say, do we approve the consent agenda? That's the
Okay.
easiest thing.
all right, all
We're
right.
good.
We're good. Everybody approves the consent agenda?
yeah. Yes.
All right. Sorry for the confusion.
It's new.
Yeah, yes it is. I haven't seen it before. Okay, now we're moving on to the certificate of appropriateness.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Historic Preservation Advisory Board, Hank Flores, Urban Design Manager. The first item here is CA 61-2025. Property is located at 301 West Marion Avenue. They're proposing new signage for the commercial building located here. It's consistent with character of the building. It was constructed in 1926 as a gas station in the commercial vernacular style and has since been converted into an office space. It's listed on the Florida Master Site file. Pursuant to section 16.3, subsection B, certificate of appropriateness is required, must be presented to this board for recommendation to the zoning official. Staff reviewed the application, determined it meets the standards of review. We have therefore recommended that this board recommend that the zoning official approve the certificate of appropriateness.
Is there a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor to approve the certificate of appropriateness number CA 61-2025 for 301 West Marion Avenue, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This next item is CA 65-2025, properties located at 314 Tamiami Trail. The applicant is proposing to replace an existing copy located on an awning on the building. The building is located at 314 Tamiami Trail, Suite 112. Proposed signage is consistent with character of the building, which was constructed in 1960 in the mid-century modern style. It is listed on the Florida Master Site File. Pursuant to Section 16.3, subsection B, a certificate of appropriateness is required and must be presented to this board for review and recommendation to the zoning official. Staff reviewed the application, determined it meets standards of review, and we therefore recommend that this board recommend that the zoning official approve the certificate of appropriateness.
Is there a motion to approve CA 65-2025 for 314 Tamiami Trail?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. And now it's time to move on to general business.
Good morning, HPAB members. Rachel Berry, zoning official for the record. So the first item we have under general business stemmed from the workshop that we had on the 7th, and is for the structural analysis requirements. So this is a discussion item to reach a consensus of what items you all would like to see in those analysis reports when they are submitted with a certificate application to demolish a structure.
If I may,
Yeah.
I thought we discussed this at the joint meeting, and we did have a consensus with council. Am I wrong about that? I was surprised to see it come up again, because I thought at that joint meeting, I had a heavy discussion, obviously, about that.
My notes from the joint meeting says include for discussion on an upcoming HPAB agenda.
Okay, all right, thank you for that.
So we just want to get a consensus so we can have a, on-record list of what we are going to update on our application to show that the structural analysis report must include these specific items.
Well, I think some of the things we talked about at the meeting was the idea that we'd include some kind of resume from the engineer and some determination as to whether or not they were certified that additional training that is required to be considered sort of a structural engineer. And I know we had a lengthy discussion about all engineers can be a structural engineer and blah, 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 but we had said we'd want to know if this person had the additional qualification. And so we would need to know that, if they do or they don't. Because one of the concerns was you could have an engineer of any sort rendering a decision on structure, and then you'd be really asking, do they have the true qualifications to do it? So if we knew what their experience was and sort of their level of certification, that would be helpful to us.
David Perry for the record. Yeah, when an appraiser submits an appraisal, they have an entire outline of their background. So I think that would be helpful. But I think that the thing that bothers me the most about a lot of these structural reports that we're seeing is that they rely on the 50-50 rule, which is not applicable in our case. Yet every one of them concludes with the 50-50 rule, so we come here and we get regurgitated this 50-50 rule, which doesn't apply. So that just does nothing but bother me, quite frankly. So I think there needs to be an analysis. If it comes to whoever it comes to, design review or permitting or zoning or whoever, when they see that, they got to do some pushback and say, hey, look, you guys are writing a report that these guys can't approve because of that.
I would only add to it too, I think lots of times, and I think that Teresa's raised this issue a number of times, is we get these reports and they talk about things that are long-term neglect of the building and not related to the actual hurricane or other storm damage. And I'd like to see more focus in these reports on things that actually relate. Every house has got termites at some level, Every house may need to update its electrical. That's part of maintaining a home. I want to see what it is based on the storm that caused damage to this property. Because now we're just getting people who are saying, oh, there's a storm, good, let me throw in everything that's ever happened that I didn't maintain on this house for the past 20 years, and then we'll get approval for it. So I think that needs to be, because lots of times we don't, we just get this big laundry list of things, and a lot of them are things that are poor maintenance of the home. So let's see what it is, either the storm or the flood or whatever it is that caused that damage. I want to see the report address that specifically.
Dawn, go ahead.
Yes, if I may, I think that's critical. We've had 2 demos that came to us for recommendation of approval. And I don't know if this is true, it's a Coconut Telegraph thing, but the first 2 were on Chastain, and that was a 329 or 359. And the neighbor wanted the house, and so we recommended a demo approval after a lot of torturous conversation, and then the neighbor bought it and they didn't want a demo, so we'll pull that back. This other house came in front of us, I believe, at our last meeting, not the joint meeting, and that's the house in the corner of McGregor and Retta, faces Retta. We discussed that. And I heard just last week that they've decided they don't want a demo. So as to what Lucille is saying, is that most of these homes are salvageable depending on how much money you want to put into them, right? I mean, that's the bottom line, and we can't dictate that.
Mm-hmm.
But if these reports would say this was the damage from Helene and Milton, and it would be edifying to know, and they've never done anything after Ian. Now, it could be because insurance companies, I mean, after Ian, it took me 18 months to get 30 cents on the dollar. So I understand the problems with that moving forward and how people make decisions. But if it would say this was wind-driven from Ian, this was water-driven from Helene and Milton, and anything else is ancillary because it's from years of 100 years of that house sitting there. So I don't know how we thread this needle, but I do think it's important we do.
David Perry, I agree. I think there has to be a root cause. What caused this? And neglect can't be one of them.
No.
Any other specifics you guys want to see? Like pictures of the entire interior of the home, exterior of the home, before and after?
Well, the interior pictures, and that's another thing that bothers me, to be honest with you. You know, my house was a total gut. So if I took pictures of my house after I gutted it, it would look like all these homes we're seeing that's saying that you can't put them back together again. So, which is a problem for me, because people had to go ahead, or they made decisions. Lots of us, after Helene, we started, cleanup and airing out and, looking to see what kind of damage we had. 2 weeks later, we get Milton. We're back at the same place. So it would be nice, and I don't know if we can demand that. I mean, here's a picture of the inside of my house before the storm, right? And here's the picture now after the storm. I don't know how far a dive we want to take into this, but if you open up all of these old homes, you're going to find, that's why when you buy an old structure, you know that you're going to find stuff you didn't know was there. And whether it be asbestos, it just depends on when it was built, the building materials at the time, lead, paint, whatever. When you buy a 100-year-old home or a 75-year-old home, I would think most of us, and we shouldn't assume anything, understand that there's going to be problems that we don't know are there behind those walls, behind those issues. Wiring, that's all over the place. It's just been unhooked every time they did a rewire. So you've got fabric wiring, and plumbing, what's that all about? So we don't need unnecessary reasons for this home to be demoed. We need the reasons to be that this was storm driven, whether it's wind or water, because anything else, as Teresa has said, can be years and years of neglect or basically ignorance. If you buy a house that you do not actually buy with a clear knowledge of what the problems could be. I don't know how we do that either. I'm just saying, if we can keep this to, we want to know what the damage was from these storms that all of a sudden made you decide to demo. Lots of us, are we going to put more money in the house and stay here and keep our fingers crossed? That's a lot of what is driving this demo. And we can't address the financial decisions that families have to make. So if we can clear this up somehow, however we can do that, I think it's necessary. Yeah.
And David, if I could add one more thing, it'd also be helpful to know if they have considered other options. moving the home, elevating the home. We have to ask this all the time. Is there an option to move the home? You know, is History Park interested in it, or somebody else interested in it? Or are you planning potentially to elevate the home? I mean, it would be nice to know that they've actually considered other options besides saying, oh, we've had a storm, let's demolish. So it would be helpful to know, and I don't know if it's on the form, we could say, you know, they could say they've considered it and rejected it, that's fine, but at least be helpful to know that they have thought about these other options before they push the panic button. And I can understand people pushing the panic button. I mean, we've had some devastating storms here, and it's human nature to say, just want to walk away from this mess. But part of it is maybe if people had a moment to think about it, and they knew that there are potentially other options out there, then, or to take parts of the home that can be removed and give them to those who might want the antique door, the historic, you know, whatever it is that's part of the house that might be useful to others who are in the neighborhood. These would be things that, to just make people aware that that there are other options besides demolishing when we have one of these devastating storms.
And my point too about the last demo, which was Rhode Esplanade, the gentleman that was here, I believe he was the contractor, because he was working on the big house that's next door. This wasn't quasi-judicial, I mean, he didn't get sworn in, but he said it couldn't be moved, it couldn't be fixed, the chimney, the walls, the roofing, all of it was beyond repair, and now, as far as I know, they're not going to demo. Yay, that's great news for me. So what was the truth of the statements? So what kind of information are we getting? You know, I can say anything I want, doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about, which I do all the time.
Depends on your motivation too, like in this particular case.
Steve Valdez, for the record. I'm not sure if this has anything to do with this or not. If we look at the reality of the situation, 97% of science and scientists say that climate change is a fact. So, here we have a historic district with houses that are not built for this. So we know they're going to get wiped out in the next couple of years, period. I mean, you can take that to Las Vegas. So is there anything, and I don't know if you demo a house, that property, then what? Is another historic faux house can be built? Or do we have anything that ties the historic district to historic
Yes.
Yes,
faux homes?
you have to build you've got vernaculars that you can pick from. I don't know how many there are now, but
There's 8, I think.
okay. So you've got 8 choices of the vernacular, the look of it. You choose that.
Oh, okay.
We don't dictate which vernacular you pick.
Right.
It doesn't have to look like the house that you had before. It could be a different vernacular, but a vernacular that is under our guidelines for new construction, correct?
Correct.
So that's there.
Okay, that's all I was curious about.
Any other comments?
So I definitely know there's a lot of frustrations about, whether the way that demos are being approached. But specific to the structural analysis report, are there specific items you all would like to see in there? For instance, would you like to see the pictures to back up the engineer's report?
David Perry, I think you have to see the pictures, even though they may be catastrophic when you see them. I think the pictures have to tell a story.
Okay. Are there any other specific or technical items that you would like to see in the reports?
Well, for me, like I said, wind-driven, when we go back 20 years ago, we were talking about things being twisted, homes being twisted or off the foundations. The shifting of those kind of things can change exactly what you're talking about salvageable. I've not seen anything like that in any of our reports. Okay, what are you basing this? That it is now not just uninhabitable is one thing, you can fix it. And it hasn't been condemned by the city. So what are you basing your professional opinion on as far as what is the structural basis of this house? Was it twisted off the foundation? Was it not? Talk about, homes that were elevated maybe 2 feet, or, the old build where you've got either the cement or you've got brick and the homes are up there and they're only, let's say they could be 2 feet off the ground, they could be 4 feet off the ground, that kind of thing. So when we get a report that says, well, that has to be replaced and that's, now it's a danger. Well, of course it is, but there's a way to do that too, and that's not exactly all that costly. So the specifics of why you are basing your professional opinion and your reputation, by the way, as to you're telling the owners and you're telling us that this house is so structurally damaged, and that means all the things that I think the city would condemn a house for. I know the building department's got to have something, a guideline that they use for condemnation. I would like to see maybe if you want to talk about these demos, how close does it come to the condemnation requirements? Because then the city's saying, there's no way anyone can fix this up. We're not going to even allow someone to try to do that. And so, to me, if we can get that more in alignment, that would be true statements that we could deal with. And like I said, because we've already got this in place, and that is we only recommend if they can go over our heads to city council like that and get that demo permit. But I think for us to do our job is to try to save historic structures and protect the neighborhood and the district. Then, I don't feel comfortable letting something slide like that, because then I feel like I'm not doing my job, and it's frustrating to me for that reason. Also, too, as far as protecting property values, why would anyone want to invest in a historic district if the historic district isn't going to be historic anymore? And if you want to have a bunch of houses that look like they were old, but they're not old, okay, I guess. But there's other things that are in play. So, what was the last point? Now I've talked too much. I've lost it. As far as what we see for demo and the condemnation end of it, I think if we can find an alignment there. Oh, the other thing too is that because we can only recommend, and you can go over our heads to council. The other thing I wanted to say was that's depending on the situation, the longest delay would be 18 months, if I'm correct. Okay, so you've got people that I see lately, a year after, that have had time to think, time to explore, how much money can they even spend, how much money do they want to spend. So the 18 months gives people, like Lucille was saying, and like these people that just decided they're not going to go through with the demo permit, it gives them time to explore other options. I know that a lot of them are going to be frustrated by that, but like I said, 18 months is the longest. If they want to get on a council agenda, that's doable. Probably maybe not the next council agenda, but it's doable pretty quickly. So I think that I don't feel too bad about holding people up in that regard. You know what I mean? It might give people time.
Absolutely, yeah, because if someone submits a complete application, we can't turn it away.
I know.
We have to process it. But we very well may have structural reports that come in that show that the house is not damaged to the extent that it requires demolition.
Yes.
And those are the ones that absolutely you could recommend the longest delay available in the code.
And they can still go over ahead and go to council, even if we recommend an 18-month delay. So what I'm saying is, I don't see that as an enormous hardship. Like I said, it's probably going to be frustrating for people, but it might help us do our job in a more efficient way.
Any other comments? All right, I guess we can move on then.
So can I just make sure we've got a consensus on these specific items? So here's the list that I have from the discussion. So require the engineer's resume to determine if they're qualified to provide the analysis. No mention of the 50-50 rule, which we'll just put like in our explanation, but not like a requirement to include.
Well, I think what happens is the conclusion of this structural analysis requirement is that it hits the 50-50 rule, which isn't a structural analysis. It's just saying it hits the 50-50 rule, and that's where my objection is. Your conclusion's not giving me a structural report. It's telling me it's a 50-50 rule, so it needs to be taken down.
Well, and the other thing about the 50-50 rule, it does not apply to
It doesn't apply to-
contributing structures. So that is something that shouldn't even,
It should even be in
It should
in the report, and once you see it in the report, that just drives me nuts.
yeah.
So to continue down the list, I've got specify the probable cause of the damage, to specify where the damage came from, whether it's neglect versus recent hurricane, pictures of the interior and exterior to support the analysis. In the application itself, but not the analysis, the applicant or the property owner Will provide an explanation of other options they've pursued. And then in the analysis also include the findings of fact supporting their recommendation, which will not include the 50/50 rule, so that they have a specific, this is why I met that, this is why I came to that conclusion.
Well, and I think, David Perry, I think what Dawn had said earlier is some analysis from the city, is the house condemned or inhabitable? I mean, where's the backup from the city that supports the justification that the house is not structurally sound?
Gotcha. And yeah, we can definitely ask them to include that as well, but as
Yeah.
far as the engineer's report,
Right.
is there consensus on these items?
Yeah. And everybody,
I'm fine with that.
everybody agree?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, moving on to AC Freeman House.
At the city council meeting yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, I think the city manager said that the contract from the Builders Association is back with the city, and the city's reviewing it, and it should be hopefully signed this week or early next week. I think that's what Dr. Reichart said.
Rachel Berry, zoning official. That is my understanding as well. So yes, it's come back to the city. The attorney is doing one more look over, and it should be on the next council meeting for their approval, which will be on November 19th.
Yay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then moving on to V94 2025, next item on the general business.
Right.
And I believe we got a supplement to this, or something additional was sent out on Tuesday.
Correct, yes. We were
Okay.
having computer issues. We were finally able to get back into the system and
Oh, okay.
send those out. So do you all have copies of what was sent out?
I saw it, but I hadn't printed it out because I was traveling.
Okay. If
It was
you need me
allowed, yeah.
to bring up any of the information, just let me know. All right, so this agenda item is a variance application for a portion of the property that's located at 126 East Olympia Avenue. There is a proposed development for the site. And we do have the applicant is here as well. Probably has better information than I can provide at the moment. But they are requesting a variance from a few portions of the code because this is a more modern, unique design. So it does not fall within any of the available architectural styles. So some of the items that they are requesting a variance from are section 3.9 of the LDRs, which requires the frontage build out to be 70% of the street base, meaning the building has to cover at least 70% of that front property line. The way that the site is laid out, it would not meet that requirement. And so they are proposing a masonry decorative wall along that side to help assist with that build out. They're requesting a variance from the minimum height requirements. In the zoning district, there is a minimum height requirement of 2 stories or 26 feet, and these would be single-story structures and units. They are requesting a variance from the building frontage type. So there's different frontage types required, whether it's storefront or a stoop, or different, just how the front of the building looks and interacts with the street. So based on the design of the project, they are requiring a variance from that portion, as well as other building principles that require buildings in this area, as a general rule of thumb, to look similar to surrounding buildings.
David Perry, I didn't notice any elevation attached in the guy to give us an idea what the frontage is going to look like here. I only saw the site plan, unless I missed something.
1 second to see.
And there is one more variance, and that's on the minimum setback requirement. So they want 0 instead of 20 at the Harold Court end. And while you're looking for that, if I may, my biggest concern is that this whole VA 042025, they don't own the property yet. It hasn't been closed on. So to me, it's like, is this a cart before? I'm not saying I really have a problem necessarily, but just because before we get too deep into this. Also, Coconut Telegraph, I hear maybe they might close on November 12th. I would feel more comfortable with these variance requests going to the person that actually owns the property instead of a person that may or may not close on November 12th. And then we can come back after the closing on November 12th and get into all of this. Like I said, I don't want to waste everyone's time, number one, but number two, it's shades of like John Larimore before he imploded, where he wanted all those variances for LDRs because he was desperately trying to sell the property, and he couldn't sell the property without getting those in place. So I want to make sure that in this discussion, I would feel much more comfortable when this is closed, and then if we've got any questions, we can do that. And so today's what, the 23rd? They close on the 12th. Then at our next meeting, boom. And if any of us have any more questions, we can also get with staff, get into a deep dive of this. Because, like I said, I'm not necessarily saying I'm against this. I'm against going into giving variances to someone who's not the owner of the property.
Well, David Perry, for the record, I mean, my entire career has been in commercial development, and I don't know any developer that would close on a property unless they had a variance or a permit in hand. Typically speaking, they would have done that through the owner, requested it through the owner.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it came through in this particular case, but I don't know anybody in their right mind, including myself, who would ever close on a property unless knowing that they could use the property for their intended use.
I've heard that argument too this week.
So
yeah.
If I might
I
add.
understand it, and I'm all in favor of more sales tax for the city, but so I personally don't have an objection to that, and it's fairly normal to get that variance or permit before you close.
And if I may add, we do have it in writing from Kim Devine, who is the registered agent from the property, that Mr. Fry does have permission to file the
Yeah.
application and move forward.
I didn't see it in the paperwork.
I gotcha.
Yep.
All right, so what is up on the screen right now is
Okay.
the applicant's proposed design for the project. Would you like to come up and talk more about it?
To the right.
I don't know what it
It's a restaurant.
is. Is it a restaurant?
David Fry, I'm the managing partner of a venue that we built very similar to this in Punta Gorda, or in Fort Myers, called Bay Street Yard. This is kind of a replica of what was done in Fort Myers for here, and I will also be the managing partner of this venue as well. And to your point about closing, we are hard on the contract. I have no way to back out. So if I back out, I lose a lot of money. So, and we do intend to close on the 12th regardless. We feel fairly confident we will get this approved. So I'm going to go ahead and buy the land. And I've got several other guys that are buying it with me, so we're moving forward. We're not here on speculation.
Okay.
We fully intend to purchase the land, and we fully intend to move forward with this project. So we've got a lot of energy behind this already. From a lot of people in Punta Gorda want to see this happen. We've met with a group down in Fort Myers. We brought them down to Bay Street Yard to see what we did there, and they just thought this is a really cool concept that they'd like to have in the town. So. And I also want to point out one of the most important parts of my resume is I am a Charlotte High graduate in 1977. I grew up here from kindergarten through high school. After college, I moved to Fort Myers, so I've been in Southwest Florida my whole life. So I'm going to go through part of this presentation, and then I've got the architect is here as well, and then Veronica Martin, who is with our civil engineering firm. So we're going to kind of participate in this together. But you see the rendering on the front. This is kind of the image that we envisioned for the Olympia side view from the road. Very similar to the project we did in Fort Myers, I will tell you. It's a very similar concept, but we think it's attractive. One of the things that we did in Fort Myers that we plan to do here, you see those oak trees, the landscaping. We spent $60,000 on landscaping on a site in Fort Myers that's half the site of this. So we are going to spend significant dollars to landscape the site to make it feel like it's a garden when you get inside, and that's something that's very important to me personally. These are some images of the Fort Myers project. You'll see some similarities to what we just showed you on the front view. These are it's a smaller site, right in the heart of downtown, but very, very similar concept. You're gonna see a lot of things that look very similar. This Fort Myers site has a two-story structure, upper levels, a VIP level. I mean, we have a stage, and that's probably one of the most important parts of this concept, is to have a stage and keep it activated on a regular basis. In Fort Myers, we have live entertainment 3 to 4 nights a week. During season, that gets even greater. The concept is, the reason we're applying so many variances is because we're not building a building. There is no building on the site. Everything is shipping containers. So there are 11 proposed shipping containers on the Punta Gorda site. And so each of the shipping containers has a purpose. 3 of them are bars, 2 of them are for refrigeration, 2 of them are for restrooms, and then a bunch of others that are just general storage. They're all air conditioned, very well fit out. But that's the reason why you're hearing us apply for so many variances, because it is not a traditional building. We had to go through the same process in Fort Myers as well, because it's just very unique. And again, these are some imagery from Fort Myers, the stage, the murals, very, very similar setup to what we're proposing to do in Punta Gorda. That screen on the back of the stage is 8 feet tall by 14 feet wide. It's a $70,000 TV. We plan to do the same thing in Punta Gorda. It's important for us to be able to have a lot of events here. We do Super Bowl parties. We do, obviously, on Saturdays and Sundays, college football, pro football. It really energizes the site, because people like to come out and do that. This is a real shot of the grand opening we had in Fort Myers. That's a live shot from up above. There's a hotel next door called the Luminary that's taken from that hotel. This is the second level. We have an upper level that's kind of a VIP level. You have to agree to spend a certain amount of money per hour to be up there. Everything on the ground is open. We rarely charge cover charges, but the upper level, there's a premium that's paid. So a lot of groups or businesses rent them for their company parties. We are pet friendly. We try to position the venue as it's a casual venue, but we also try to have an upscale feel to it, in that we serve all drinks in glassware. A lot of venues like this serve in cheap plastic cups. We serve in glassware. We have staff that probably the best staff in Fort Myers, is because we pay the best. They're making the most money, so we're able to attract good people. So service is very important to us. We want you to walk away from this. If you want to take a look at some of our Google reviews in Fort Myers, you'll see what I mean. That's another shot from the upper level. Rory, is this where I turned over to you? I think it is. So Rory is the architect with Joyce Owens. They designed the Fort Myers venue as well. He'll walk you through some of the concepts on this venue, and I'll kind of come back.
Dawn, you have a quick-
I just have one question, because you talked about the garden atmosphere, and you talked about, the green space kind of thing, and you brought up the trees, so that's why I'm going to ask the question. And I'm assuming, I could see that the base is kind of an AstroTurf kind of a thing.
There's a little bit of both.
Is there?
There's AstroTurf in front of the stage.
Okay, so then, and the green wall, is that also like plastic trees, or is that a real shrub?
It's all shrub.
Okay, thank you.
The wall is all calusias in the front.
Okay.
And then we'll plant ivy to grow on the sign wall. You see that sign wall on the left?
Yep.
Like in Fort Myers, we have ivy growing up that now, so that'll cover it. It hasn't covered it yet, but it'll ultimately cover it. We want ivy behind the lit sign.
Thank you.
And everything is calusia hedges around the whole property.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
How much of the property itself, once it's built, will be permeable?
I don't know that we have that calculation yet. Dean, the civil engineering, is going through that process. We had a meeting yesterday with contractors and the engineer and everybody. He's getting ready to make his application. So it'll be a reasonable amount, because the turf in Fort Myers, they made us put in the AstroTurf, which is about 3,000 square feet, has to be permeable. So that will be permeable. Obviously, there's turf in a lot of the other areas that are obviously going to be permeable. I can't remember what the square footage of concrete was, probably 6,000 or 7,000 square feet of concrete on the site. So that's really the only unpermeable surface on the site. So I don't have that exact number for you now, but it's a decent amount.
I do have a question on the shipping containers. hey, I love industrial style, that's personally right up my alley, but I'm not sure for the historic district, it's up my alley. And so I guess my question is, there's 8 different design styles. Is there any thought put into the idea of taking these shipping containers and putting a facade that fits within one of the 8 categories so that at least fits into the neighborhood a little more than a shipping container is? I know you've generously called it coastal contemporary, but I don't see too many shipping containers on the beach. So I guess my question is, how does this sort of fit into the neighborhood? Because again, I'm not against industrial style, I'm just not sure this is the right place to put it.
So, I mean, I would assume that you guys are mostly concerned with, I know Fort Myers was, mostly concerned with the exterior view, not once you walk inside. That's
Exactly.
less of a concern for you, right?
Correct.
That was the same for them. I mean, they basically told us if there's any murals, we need to approve them if they can be seen from the outside. So I guess I bring back to this view. I mean, yeah, there are shipping containers on the site, but you only see 2 from the front view of Olympia. And we can we could certainly do things to those, but I'm not sure. I mean, personally, I think this is a very nice view from the street. I mean, it may not be historic, but I will tell you in Fort Myers, we got a unanimous approval for this look, even though it wasn't historic. So, I mean, it was a vacant lot, kind of like here. We didn't have to restore historic principles.
So I just want to make sure you're saying that you haven't considered any kind of the 8 styles that exist in the historic district. That was not part of any of the consideration in putting together the project?
Because we are not building we're not building a traditional building, no. So there's no building here for me to consider that.
Well, but you could take a shipping container and make it appear to be whatever you want it to be. I've seen houses that are made out of shipping containers that look like something else.
You're right.
So there's a way
we have
to do
2
that.
that we could do that face Olympia. There's one on the left there, right below that big sign that's
Mm-hmm.
a tower, and then there's one on the right that you only see the 8-foot end of it. So yeah, I mean, we could do something with those 2, but that's.
Well, that would be something I would think would be important. I mean, we're a Historic Preservation Advisory Board. That's
Yep.
something we think is important, is to try to keep at least the historic look, especially where it's going to be something that can be seen from the street.
I'll let the architect speak to
Okay.
that. Maybe he might have a better answer for that
Okay.
when he comes up. But
From a historical background, I worked for Sealand Service, Malcolm McLean, the developer of containerized shipping. So we're talking 1960 here, which would fall in within the purview of what we consider historic.
Right, but
So
it's not
you
one
can
of
look
our,
at it
it's not
that
one
way.
of our design styles.
That's
a big difference.
David Perry, for the record, I mean, Ortesia's got a food truck sitting there. So it is blocked more than it used to be, but there is precedent for it in downtown.
And I guess my other question I have for you is, I see there's not going to be any on-site parking, so that would mean anybody who visits the venue, plus employees, I'm assuming as well, would have to park in the neighborhood. And is there any consideration to the impact that that would have on the historic district to have that kind of flow of people in there, no place to park on site?
well, I mean, I'll let Rachel speak to the parking situation.
Okay.
We were told that we can utilize the garage for this site, for this project. So beyond that, I don't know. We did in the site plan, and this was a request of one of the council members, that we did put in a pull-off on the back left side on that side road, so that elderly people, if they wanted to come to the venue, could be dropped off there and not have to park at the garage and walk the whole way. So that was one concession we made, but with a half-acre site, we didn't have room to put parking in. It just,
Because that, I think, would be a factor for the neighborhood.
What you just said, so I mean, we've got Nesbitt, right? So you've got the Bank of America building you're splitting the property. You're buying the parking lot, Bank of America is gonna be for sale for somebody else?
just to be clear, we're buying a half acre. They have 1 acre left, so we're not
Okay.
even buying the whole parking lot.
Got it,
Yeah,
thank you
yeah,
for that.
Yeah.
So we've got the 0 setback, which would be the alleyway,
Okay.
right?
Correct.
So you've got the flower shop and Dean's, is that what's right there on that? No, is that just Dean's or is that flower shop too? Dean's south of border, which isn't there, well, it's close.
It's a flower shop.
Right, it's the flower shop on that corner. So there's that alleyway that goes through there and it runs through to the other side of the Wyvern. And there's parking back in there.
Yep.
There's parking back in there. So that's another option. So the question for me was, if you're talking about the other side, this side of the Bank of America building, which is where they had their drive-throughs and all that. So they're owning that too. That's not coming your way. So there won't be any ingress or egress from that side. Okay. My last question about this before I'll let you go is you're talking about, I didn't see anything, we were talking about height variances. I understand all of this is because you're not talking about building a building, right? So when you're talking about that upper deck, and it's probably in here somewhere and I missed it, how high? No?
Well, the roof of the second story is about 28 feet
Okay.
at the peak. So not, it's slant, so you can see
it,
right at
okay.
that peak, it's 28 feet.
Okay.
So it's, you know, I guess that would qualify as a second story, right? Height-wise? Well, it's not truly a second story. What it is.
It's an upper level.
It's an upper level, and
Okay.
it basically there's ramps and stairs. It's going to be a stem wall 4 feet off the ground with concrete slab. So you'll walk up that to get up to the VIP level. So it won't be like in Fort Myers we put in it was 10 feet raised, and then we had to put in an elevator because of that. And
Got it.
that's Elevator and 2 sets of stairs. It would just cost us a fortune.
Right.
So we're trying to do this a little more efficiently here. We'll see if it is. I mean, we haven't bid this out yet, but you know, we do have some estimates on cost. So, but I think it'll actually be better from a quality standpoint because now we're putting concrete instead of steel on the second level. So,
I do have one more question, and this is the Bank of America building because that's probably going to be demoed. I don't know. I can't assume that, but I do know they got two choices: find a buyer or demo it. And I've heard that conversation for a while now. So you've got no problem putting this in because you still have they still have part of a parking lot. So that was my concern. How close are we getting if they want to come in and demo? You obviously feel confident that that's not going to bother you at all.
it's a long ways away. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're really only taking about half of the parking lot, so they have the whole other half of
Okay.
that parking lot.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll come back up at the end.
Rory Connors, architecture, Joyce Owens, architect for the yard on Olympia Avenue. So as David said, it's a very similar concept to what we did in Fort Myers. So this is proof of concept, right? And that this image is the south corner of the property, and David had pointed out that we had chose actually to put 2 shipping containers on the Olympia frontage as like a symbol of what this place is, right? Because you're going to go in and there are 11 of these containers throughout the site and different uses, and trying to use them each creatively, but like kind of showcase that on the exterior was a goal actually. And so, and then the entry pillars marking the main gates, and then like David was saying, we have this well landscaped frontage, as well as these. When we started out in Fort Myers, when the oak trees arrived, they were over 20 feet tall, and they've grown significantly since. So even in these images, they don't. This is probably maybe a couple of years from now, but still, it's not like we're planting little seedlings or something. So this is a better site plan than what we were talking about. Olympia is on the right in this case, and then the alleyway down at the bottom, and the remainder of the parking lot would be above this drawing, right? And then, so as you enter on the right, you come across in what would be like a paver boulevard. It's about 10 feet wide. You go through the gates and you come in between what is the bar containers and the stage to the top. All right, so then the green area is the AstroTurf area that David was talking about, and that would be like the front of stage collecting, gathering area. And then there are some drink rails where they're basically just bar top seating and whatnot. And then in between the 2 containers that are just below that boulevard with that large post-shade space, those are 2 bar containers that are on the ground. And then that whole area, that square that is all those containers, is all that covered space that has that the large roof over the top of it. And then below that, you can see the 4 VIP. That area is elevated 4 feet. Okay, and so just behind that, you have a ramp to get up there, and then just behind that, below that, is the restroom areas. Okay, so just to give you the lay of the land. To the left of all that is our refrigeration, and then to the left of that is the food truck alley. So, and then down in the lower left corner, you'll see the dumpster area, and then there's a service entry with a gate So we can move the tables and chairs, and if we need to, we can pull a truck in, have our deliveries. There's space there for like empty kegs, and then in the top left corner, there's a staff-only area so that we have space for an office as well as for staff to go kind of behind the scenes and have their lunch or take their breaks and all that kind of stuff. And then in that top left corner as well, there would be, ideally, there would be access for like a talent entry. So when we have shows, they could come in through that staff area. They can get to the stage from the backside. It's kind of the idea.
Is that how the food trucks get in and out of there?
Yeah, that same gate would be how the food trucks come and go, yes.
Okay.
And as David was saying, there's this sort of enlarged apron there in the bottom left, so that if we do have, well, deliveries, but also if somebody does need to be dropped off, there's a safe place for this to occur that's not on Olympia Avenue, right? So we've looked at the front entry, and we've talked about this, and I think something that we should discuss, or at least part of our questions, is like, how much signage are we allowed, is a question. Because, you know, having a sign on the wall and then also having a sign tower, we don't want to overdo it by any means, but we do want to be known, right? And for the most part, that's the only signage that's visible from the outside, but we want to make sure that it's acceptable. So this is coming through the front gates. You're coming in down the boulevard. As you can see, the sort of covered bar area to the left and the stage on the right. The container doors, you'll notice, are highlighted. Most of the property is painted in black, but we've painted the front doors bright yellow in this case. This is from the right corner, so if we were standing by that the container that was on the right of the entry, and so we're looking at the stage on the right over there, and there's some additional TVs throughout the property. Over on the left is a games area, so we can set up. There's a ping pong table and some cornhole and some potential for, you know, yard games.
No pickleball?
Pickleball? No, I don't have room for that. That'd be great though. This is a view from the stage looking back into the bar area, the covered bar area. So you can see all the way in the back is that VIP area with there's 4 TVs kind of lining the horizon there. Shadows aren't great on this shot, are they? It makes it a little bit confusing, but all that area underneath that cover would be a lot of, you know, high top tables, so that everybody can see. And then above that is that VIP area, even just beyond it. So this is from that staff corner, looking back at the entry. You can see the entry gates in the distance there, and the stage to your left, and then these I failed to mention the tree. The trees all get their own kind of high top seating around them. So, and we also like the idea of, like, we can put lighting inside that volume and then uplight the trees. They look really nice, especially at night. The site looks really good at night downtown. So this is the food truck alley. Tables and chairs, again, movable if we need to use it for deliveries and such. We're planning on 2 trucks in this location, and then you see the drink rail there. You know, there's high top seating. And then this is obviously the site plan. You can, down there in the lower right, this is the questions about, like, how much of the site are we taking up. You can see the Bank of America building, the portion that this site would consume, and then the remaining parking and the alleyway, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have any questions before I hand it over to Veronica? And she's gonna answer a lot of, like, the civil issues.
Well, I guess since you're in the architect, I'm going to ask again the same question I asked before, which is, we've got 8 different styles. A shipping container can be turned into really anything you want, because I've seen these shows that are all about taking shipping containers and turning them to whatever you want. So is any thought given to who, because part of the reason, we had this in our joint discussion with City Council, which is part of the reason why people come to Punta Gorda. The American Cruise Lines come here because they like the quaint historic feel of the historic district. And that's part of the attraction.
Sure.
History Park is one of the excursions that they come to because people want to have that feel of old Florida. And that's part of the attraction here for tourists. I've had family members visit, they all say, oh, I just love the historic district because you don't see this in Florida.
Yes.
That is true. And so part of my question is has thought been given to the idea of, instead of having the more industrial look? I don't have anything against industrial myself. I like that style. But I'm not sure it's suited for historic district where we're trying to maintain that bit of old Florida that's fast disappearing. So has any thought been given to any of these styles, since you can make a shipping container look like whatever you want?
So
I think it blends very well
Less-
into
yes
the
and no. How about that?
industrial section.
my response to that idea is twofold in a way. Trying to shoehorn some of those styles onto this project doesn't really appeal to me as a designer. That's one, okay? But the idea of the harborside hometown does. The living on the harbor and the shipping container are one and the same. It's harbor adjacent at least. And so I'm leaning into these ideas of the Bay Street, literally sitting on the river, on the bay. They call it Bay Street. It's not a bay, it's a river, but whatever. But it's the first road on the river. And the same thing down here in the harborside hometown is like, we're leaning into this idea of these port cities and these containers representing these port cities. And so I'm not trying to hide the containers.
Okay. Because that would be my one big concern, which is that it doesn't really fit the neighborhood. Again, if it was somewhere else in Punta Gorda, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but that's one of my concerns. And that, the second, of course, is the parking, but that's another whole issue.
Yeah. Oh, and when you were discussing that, I know to the south there's an enormous parking lot across the street from Olympia.
Yeah, it's owned by Save-A-Lot. They save a lot of people, so I don't suspect that after you open, they may not want people to use it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Potentially.
and that's coming up too, as
Yeah.
far as all these, we got a bunch of holes in this city.
Yeah.
And it's been, people after Charlie, they get used to using them for parking. And now we've got this whole thing coming up in front of the city about closing that off. Or, you're going to have to either take away the concrete, or you're going to, whatever. So that's something that I wouldn't say we can count on until.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as David said, we've given permission to use the parking garage as well.
Yep.
Well, that's the
Like to
city
ask-
parking garage you're talking about.
Yeah.
David, a quick question if I may. Charlie Noble, class of 1978. Charlie High School.
I recognize your name. Good to see you.
Well, you know we all age.
Yeah.
How big is the acreage in your Fort Myers established? I'm trying to get an idea how this compares size-wise with what you have.
It's roughly half. It's a little over 12,000 square feet. This is 21,000 square feet.
Yes, so
it's
it's twice
significantly
as big.
smaller, yeah.
Okay.
And one of the things we learned down there that we're trying to address here, other than just logistics of moving product in and out, because we did a tremendous volume in our first year. It surprised us. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're doing a second one. We've got a third one planned for Babcock Ranch. So we literally did 172,000 people through since we opened. That's 10,000 people a month are coming through that venue. So it created issues from a service standpoint that we didn't expect. So we're trying to address that here. With the extra size though on the parcel, it gives us a little bit more room to move things around.
Good morning. I'm Veronica Martin. I'm senior planner with TDM Consulting. We are a civil engineering and planning firm. And when I say civil engineering, I know this came up earlier, the owner of our company specializes in civil site design. He's a master stormwater planner and traffic engineer. He is not structural. However, he has been working with city staff, especially the building department, on making the shipping containers waterproof and water resistant for flooding, and also on drainage for the property. So you will see full site construction plans in the future when this comes back for permitting. But I wanted to move forward with a little bit of the not the boring stuff, but the technical information. So, on the aerial, you can see 126 East Olympia, is being split into two parcels. Of course, the Bank of America parcel will remain with its small parking lot, and then the site that David is purchasing, which will get a new address if this gets approved. And as you can see, there's numerous commercial businesses, restaurants, and hotels in the downtown area. I wanted to go to some of these. I took these from Google Street View. So this is a site of the parking lot and showing the Bank of America. The next slide is the western portion where the venue is proposed, right there on 126 East Olympia. I also took a shot looking down East Olympia towards the downtown, and of course you know that that area of town is historic district, and it's just commercial storefronts and shops and retail businesses. I also took a screenshot of the parking lot to the south of East Olympia. We're not proposing on using that for parking since we were told we could use the parking garage and other downtown parking areas. But I just wanted to point out that there are areas in the city that are in need of maybe rehabilitation or redevelopment, which is what David is doing on this site. So it will no longer be a sea of concrete, it will actually have a development on the site. The future land use of this property is downtown, and of course the zoning is city center. The master concept plan that you're seeing on the screen includes the setbacks, the loading area, the buffers, the food truck locations. We're requesting a variance to permit a 0 rear yard setback to Harold Court instead of the required 20-foot setback. Again, that's where the food trucks will be, and that's where the, along the alley side is where the drop-off and delivery area will be.
Just because I'm back to this and it's a concern for me.
Mm-hmm.
That is an alleyway.
Yes.
And, you know, if you've ever gone down there, trying to, you can go both directions if you could get both cars through there, which you can't. But you've got parking from the Wyvern, and you've got back parking over there. And like I said, so Dean south of the border is not open as a restaurant anymore. The flower shop still is. And that's a 0 lot line there on a very small alleyway. Mm-hmm. And that's where the trucks are going to be coming in and that kind of stuff. I don't know, and this is up for the city. I'm not in planning, I'm not in zoning, I'm not in engineering. But that will have to be addressed, in my opinion, because I don't see how we're going to make that work unless we make some changes.
There's an 8 to 10 foot swale between the road and the property line.
Okay.
So, you know.
So that's where you're picking up instead of going from 20 to 0 lot line, and then you're going to pick up, or you're saying we could do.
That's not our property.
I didn't say it was.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just talking about the 0 lot line you're proposing, as opposed to 20, which is the regulation. So I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. I think that's something that needs to be addressed. This board doesn't have to address it. It's none of our business, I don't think. Okay? So, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I wanted to give you a little bit more information about this site. And anytime you want to ask me a question, just jump right in. The proposed development does include a 6-foot high opaque wall or fence on all sides, as you can see on the site plan. It not only provides privacy, but it does increase the compatibility with the adjacent land uses, even though there are going to be streets on 3 sides and a parking lot on the other side. The location is not within 200 feet of property in a residential district or from an NR district boundary, which is one of the requirements. The Land Development Code, section 3.9, talks about the city center zoning district. And it does state that it's expected to expand over time to meet the growth and demand for downtown facilities and services. So that's the intent of the developer, David Fry, to redevelop this old and seldom used parking lot into an enterprise that will serve the downtown community. The proposed use is similar to the restaurant with outdoor dining and outdoor entertainment, and it is permitted in the Land Development Code. The hours of operation are going to be similar to what we have in Fort Myers.
Carla Valdez.
Sunday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., Monday, 4 p.m. to 12 a.m., closed Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Thursday, 4 p.m. to 12 p.m., and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. So, of course, they will also have to comply with the noise ordinance in the city of Punta Gorda. I want to go over landscaping a little bit. I know David did and Rory did. So the site does need to comply with equipment screening and street canopy requirements, but there's no buffers are required. So we didn't provide a formal landscaping plan for this meeting. That will be included with the site development and site construction plans along with the engineering plans. So David has always proposed a minimum of a 20-foot tall mature oak tree as the canopy trees along the frontage, which I can tell because I've been to the Bay Street Yard, provides a generous amount of shade. So they're very useful. They also propose palm trees, dense clusia hedges for the screening, and the horsetail reeds, which you saw on some of the pictures. So again, we are requesting 5 variances. They were part of your submittal package. You saw the full explanation, the requirement of the Land Development Code, what we're requesting a variance to accomplish. I can go over each one of those if you would like.
Yes.
Okay. Variance number 1, from Land Development Regulation Section 3.9 G7. Development standards, which requires the frontage build out to be 70% of the street face. We're requesting to permit the proposed 6-foot high opaque wall along East Olympia Avenue to meet this requirement in lieu of a building facade.
Then I'm going to interrupt for the record. That's actually variance number 2. At least in the packet I've got.
Okay.
Variance number 1, that's variance number 2 in my packet.
Okay.
So just to clear for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Variance number 1 would be the 3.9, parenthesis G, parenthesis 4.
For the rear setback.
That's the 020,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I'm going to renumber mine so I don't get that mixed up when I'm speaking. Okay, variance number 3 from Land Development Regulations Section 3.9 G9, which requires a minimum height of 2 stories or 26 feet above base flood elevation. We're requesting to permit a minimum height of 1 story and 20 feet above the BFE. So as we learned today, the maximum height of the canopy is going to be 28 feet. But in actuality, we're not proposing 2 habitable stories. We're proposing then 1 main level where the storage containers are located, and then kind of a mid-level, which is the one that's going to be 4 feet higher for the VIP seating area. So that was variance number 3. Variance number 4 requires an arcade, shop front, stoop, forecourt, or dooryard frontage. We're requesting to permit a front lawn type frontage on East Olympia Avenue. And that's more of just a site design preference, one that fits in with the proposed development. Variance number 5 is the building style, which requires buildings to reflect the vernacular architecture of Old Punta Gorda by incorporating the elements of one of the following styles: frame vernacular, folk Victorian craftsman, Queen Anne revival, colonial or Georgian revival, neoclassical revival, mission style, or commercial vernacular. So as Rory had explained, the architectural style that we're proposing is coastal contemporary, something that is in keeping with the coastal area of the downtown of Old Punta Gorda, and fits in with the type of development proposed. Variance number 6, a variance from Land Development Regulation 3.9 E4. Building principles were applicable by use. The applicant's requesting a variance from Article 7, Section 7.4 building principles, which requires adjacent buildings to be architecturally compatible through the following items: similar silhouettes, spacing, setbacks, proportions, and treatments, exterior materials, scale, and massing. So there's a big difference of what's going on East Olympia Avenue. You have the storefront on the west side of US 41, which is the old old Punta Gorda, and then you have 41. Then you have on the east side smaller buildings that are only 1 story, then the massive parking lot. To the north of that, you have small 1-story buildings. South of that, you have the parking lot. And then east, you have the big Bank of America building. So there really wasn't something that we could be compatible with. And again, Rory feels very strongly about the architectural design that's proposed. And we think it works well and will be a landmark venue in downtown Punta Gorda. I believe that is the end of my presentation. I do want to say that staff did support the variance requests. They found them consistent and compatible. Staff review did require that we provide a drainage easement on this site for additional drainage, and my boss is working on that with city staff, and a dumpster enclosure. So we've been working with staff for maybe 6-9 months. It seems like it's been a while, with multiple meetings to get to this point. So if we get your support and approval, then we'll be on our next step to BZA and then City Council, and then of course submitting the site construction plans.
Okay, well, thank you. So I guess that means we need to have a motion to approve these variances?
Can I ask a question
Yes.
before the motion?
Yes, absolutely.
Staff, based on this bit of information, do you have any comments with your interaction with these people? Do you have any thoughts?
Rachel Berry for the record. So I do agree. We have had multiple meetings. I've been here since November of last year, and it was one of the first projects that came up once I started with the city. So the conversations have been ongoing for quite some time. We understand that the design does not fall within the historic guidelines, but we do also recognize that it would bring in the start of some revitalization to the area. And so from here, after your recommendation, it would go to the Planning Commission and then to the City Council for final decision. And so if you all have any recommendations that you would like to include, or conditions that you would like to include or suggest or recommend, you absolutely can do that.
I think one of her last points is that the east part of town, not the west part, so you got 41 going north and south, that's a total different enchilada than what you have in the core downtown, where we still have a few historic structures there, and it's different, where that's always been mixed use, things like that. So I think that's a perfectly valid thing to say. It's just different. It's none of our board's thing, but I'm glad someone brought up drainage, because that's something that's going to be important. That's more for planning and zoning in the city. It's not our board, but you've mentioned it. So most of the questions I have been answered. That's all I want to say about that.
Lucille?
I'm just going to renew my concern about it not coming within the building styles, because it doesn't really fit in. Again, I love industrial design, but I just don't think it's the appropriate place for it. And also my concern about the really lack of parking. Yes, we get some approvals here and there, but the question is what's going to be the impact of, because people are going to park somewhere and they're going to park in the neighborhood. They're going to try to find free parking, or if they run out of space because there's some big event there. So those would be my main concerns that I would express, is that it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood and the parking issue.
Gotcha. If I could add on the parking issue, that is something that actually has come up with many business owners recently. Because the location, the city center district does not require parking for buildings less than 10,000 square feet. And then it goes further on to say that if you do provide parking, it cannot exceed what is allowed for the uses outside of that district. And based on the square footage of the building,
Right.
There's really nothing that's required by the code.
No, I understand it's not required, but one of our responsibilities here is to try to protect the neighborhood and its historic value. And it's very difficult for people in the historic neighborhood now to find parking, so I'm just going to say it's going to have an impact, and you are going to hear from the neighbors. I don't live in the neighborhood, but you are going to hear from the neighbors.
Charlie, any other comments?
I'm ready to vote on the motion.
Steve?
I think it blends beautifully in that rundown historically industrial section.
I'm concerned that it's blocking the view of the Bank of America.
Well, I love the idea that you back up to a car lot.
Oh,
And I have a vested interest in containers. I grew up in that industry, and it's 60 years, and it's changed the world.
if I may, just because I forgot, we did have a question about the signage, which will come to us, and I think you brought that up, and that's going to probably come back to us once you guys decide the look of that. So I just wanted to bring this up before we say yes or no, that I think that would be something we'll be discussing in the future.
That
project.
is correct.
Okay.
So once the variance process is finalized, and then they go to submit the development plan application, because it's within the historic area,
Yeah.
a certificate of appropriateness would be required, and so yes, those items would come back.
Okay. Teresa?
I love the concept, and I'm glad you finally found a home.
Chris?
Just quickly, I think one of the things that's synonymous with a historic neighborhood is the fact that you can walk around and enjoy restaurants, bars. I think this would be a huge plus for Punta Gorda, honestly, in the historic district.
And David Perry, for the record, I'm absolutely very happy to see this type of use downtown. I think it's long overdue. I think we have all these gaps left from Charlie that do not bring tax dollars to the city, and this is something with the type of traffic that you generated in Fort Myers, I think would just be nothing but a boom for the downtown area in total. So with that being said, does somebody want to file a motion to approve these variances?
I'll make a motion, Charles Noble, for the record, that all requested variances be accepted.
Is there a second?
I so approve, or second.
Can we do the V-04-2025?
Yes.
Just for the record?
Yes. So Charlie, just to make sure where you stand corrected here, that we want to approve, you're filing a motion to approve V-04-2025. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And there was a second?
I agree and second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the variance 04-2025, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'll say nay, and for the reasons stated, which was the not fitting within the design and concern about parking in the neighborhood.
Okay. Recommendation for the variances is approved. And time to move on to staff comments.
I have one.
Is there
Staff
anything?
comments
Oh, that
first.
is here.
Staff comments.
Yeah. Staff comments
I'm
first.
sorry.
Staff comments.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
City Hall renovation is here to discuss.
Got ahead of myself.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, Charlie. I'm excited.
You're very welcome.
Thank you all for your time.
David, was that Downing Fry years ago?
Fry Brothers Aluminum,
Okay.
my dad, lost his company.
For the
Okay.
record, you look vaguely familiar.
Isn't this the 100th anniversary?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of Charlotte High?
Is it?
Yes.
I'm not familiar with that.
I believe it is, because the historic dinner is going to be celebrating that.
Go ahead.
Hi, Danielle Burhill, Urban Design. So I'm commenting on just the City Hall renovation today, because we already talked about the AC Freeman. We know the status of that. So there's kind of three things going on. The roof is underway. They're making a lot of progress. I watch them out my window. They're not there today, so it might be a inspection day or something. Then we've got the historic part of the building, and right now there is a scope in procurement to, as you know, we had a big assessment of that building done in like 2019. There's a scope out for that same company to come back in and update that assessment to conditions today before we start any construction on it. And part of that bid is also going to be construction plans. So that's in the works for that part of it. And then we have the council chambers portion, where right now the planners have been asked to come up with certain designs to kind of just upgrade the look of the room. So they've got that done about 60%. They're going to present a couple of options to council, and then they'll pick what they want to do, and then they'll price it out. That's pretty much all I had. Did anybody have any questions about that?
Just for my edification, because I was working under the premise that the city hall, the council chambers, didn't need a lot of much of anything, and that council was looking forward to getting that, at least that part of it, open soonest, so we can get back in there for our meetings, and then
Yes.
the rest.
Yes, and it will be way sooner. That portion is way far ahead of
Yeah.
the old portion. They just asked for some kind of inexpensive cosmetic ideas to make it look a certain way, which the planners are coming up with.
Okay.
So that's, I think it'll look nicer. It'll get a refresh,
Yeah,
but it won't be a lot of construction work
Right.
in there.
and we'll be back home, at least that part of it.
Yeah, that'll be a lot sooner than the old part.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks.
Hello, Rachel Berry again for the record. So I do have two other things. I wanted to pass this out following the joint meeting. I was able to deep dive into what we are now using as the list of properties that require a certificate of appropriateness.
Yay.
It has not been posted to the website yet. I need to make it a little bit prettier before I post it to the public, but I do have copies for everybody that I'll
Great.
pass out.
Thank
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Looking for this one.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So this replaces this one from the 2023?
That is
This
correct.
is our new, okay.
So the list you have in front of you merges everything that's on the Florida Master Site File, everything that is within the National Register District, and everything that is individually listed on the National Register District.
Great.
So there will be some on there under the Florida Master, the site ID column that say NA. That's only because that they are within the boundaries of the National Register District, but they're not on the Florida Master Site File. Newer properties, newer homes, those sorts of things. The second item, on a future agenda or the next agenda, I would like to include a discussion for elevation requirements, design requirements. We had a call with Elevate Florida this week, so they are moving forward with the Elevate Florida projects that were granted in Punta Gorda. And they asked, one of the things that I want to speak with you all about is they asked, what type of foundation requirements do we have? And there isn't really anything in the historic guidelines about elevating homes and what that should look like underneath the home. So if that is okay with you all, I'd like to add that onto the agenda for discussion. And last, following the joint meeting, I was able to do some more digging, and I did find that the process of what happened when they were deciding who was going to be on the list, who was going to be off the list, who was going to stay on the list, the criteria that was used was, one, if it was a significant person who contributed to the history of the city. Two, if it's a significant location where important historical events happened, or whether it is historical architectural style, resemblance of that period.
If I may, that was always in there. That wasn't the new criteria. What I kept questioning was homes that got taken off in 2023. What was the criteria for taking the home off?
Yep.
And I don't like to assume, but all I could do, because no one could find the list, is the ones that were put on in 2023. Was it the same criteria as before that from going back to the original criteria into 1989, 1991, when we put the criteria up for what is going to be a contributing structure. So things were added and deleted, that mostly weren't deleted unless they were demolished or burned down or something. Homes were added because of age at that point, because or hardly ever for the famous person that lived there or that kind of thing. So it sounds to me like, I still don't know what the answer was for homes that got taken off the criteria.
Yeah, so I'll finish.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I
So
interrupted
the
you.
properties that were removed, what was explained to me is because they did not meet any of those criteria.
Well, but they did before, so then they're removed, so they didn't then. That's oxymoronic, it makes no sense.
So I think the difference is that before, the properties were on the Florida Master Site File list, and that is any property that is over 50 years old,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the architectural style, who lived there, anything along those lines. And so when they were trying to add a large group of properties to the master site file list, that's what triggered the deep dive investigation. I was sort of around 2018, 2019 to do more research and figure out, what exactly do we need to add or not add? What are we going to include on the local register?
Yeah, and then they took off, like, let's say they took off a home that was built in 1951 with almost the exact same kind of vernacular, and then they put on another one that was built in 1951 with the exact same vernacular, with no one famous living in it. So that whole thing just bothers me. If we're just going to go back to the 2022 and we're not even looking at 2023 anymore, then any of the structures that were added in the 2023 list, I think we need to revisit and not have them on anymore until we actually do that.
Well, we technically don't have a local register right now, so that is the list of properties that by our code require the certificate.
I think, and I don't make myself clear. So when you're talking about the 50-50 rule, when you're talking about having to come to HPAB for certificates of appropriateness, what we did in 2023 is we took some homes off and we put some homes on. Then the LDRs changed. So now, and like you said, and overlay districts and things like that have all changed. So it's confusing for property owners, and especially after rebuild, after these storms. That's important for the property owners. We need to be clear about that. And so I'd like it to, we're going back to the 2022 list. So whatever happened, in December of 2023, if you were taken off, guess what? You're back on. If you were added, then you're off, unless you want to come to the city and ask the city to be re-put on the list, or if you didn't want to be on the list, taken off. And that's only for that time frame, December 2023. I just think that's fair to property owners. That's just my personal opinion.
And are you referring to when we re-adopt a local register?
I'm referring to, okay, so like, let's go to the Ann Street property. That's that neighborhood, okay? Those homes, some of them weren't on that list until December 2023, which means they got a letter that said, we've added you to the list, and if you got any questions or you got any problems with that, contact the city. I think most homeowners didn't know what that was. Other homeowners like me, and I'm on Olympia, which isn't the national, but it was an overlay, I got a letter that said they took my house off the list. So my point being, and I hate to just beat this to death, but I think it's important for property owners. So Ian, before the 2023 list, I was under the certificate of appropriateness issues. My house was not subject to the 50-50 rule. Now, in December of 2023, I am subject to 50-50, but I'm not subject to CA's, certificate of appropriateness. To be fair to the property owners, when these things changed in 2023, I'm only talking about the property owners that were added or deleted, and let them say to the city, I'm cool being on or I'm cool being off until we figure it out, so they can move forward under the parameters of what they can and cannot do, and insurance, by the way, too.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't do that until we adopt a new local register, because the way that the LDRs are written, all of these properties fall within what the LDRs require.
Well, it's really a problem for people after these storms. It's a huge problem. It's financial, it's decision making, it's that kind of stuff, and I just don't think it's fair. And if we have to wait, on this, I guess, I don't think we can wait. It's been a year after the storms, and people need to move forward. They want to move forward, and I think we need to make sure they can. And I'm sorry, Steve, but I really feel strongly about that. I really do.
Well, maybe a bit of good news. We have been, not sure if you all are aware, but we have been co-partnering in a way with the Southwest and the Central Florida Regional Planning Councils to help set up workshops to discuss the LDRs and where we go with those next steps. And of course, the local register will be part of the overall land development regulations. And so not only are we moving forward with the letters to property owners regarding specific historic designation, we are furthering those discussions about the whole chapter as a whole.
I'll just say, I know I'm one person, but I can't stand the 50-50 rule. You know, if I want to invest in my home and not add on rooms but just make it nicer and it's getting older, I don't want to be subject. I don't want to think, well, I can either do this or I can do that because I'm subject to the 50-50 rule. My house is 30 years old. It's a little old by Punta Gorda standards, but not really old. And I have a lot of maintenance issues on a 30-year-old home at this point. And I want to keep it beautiful, but I hate that 50-50 rule. I think it should be indexed to inflation. Is there anything in these workshops that's going to discuss the 50-50 rule, whether it should be
Not that I'm
revised?
aware of. My understanding is that it's a state requirement,
Yeah.
but I would be much more comfortable deferring that to the city building official, Ron Kahowicz. But it's not in our land development regulations.
I know it's not in our purview, but I think, I would like to see it addressed. I don't know how anybody else feels. I don't know this to be a fact, but I believe a lot of people are happy getting their homes designated as historic so they can get around the 50-50 rule. And I don't think that should be a requirement, frankly. Like I said, you know, to have all your requests go through the board here just because you're trying to get around the 50-50 rule. And it seems like a huge burden. It's not necessary anyway. That's my bit on the 50-50 rule.
Anything else for me?
Other comments? Member comments?
I have a comment. The website for Caloostamuku is up and running. I think it's beautiful. And I'll also point out there's a nice little button if you want to donate to the cause for the preservation, restoration, and celebration of that statue. And the website is www.caloostamucu.org. Please look at it and consider clicking the donate button. We are partnering with Team Punta Gorda, so it would be a tax-deductible donation if you feel so inclined. And I'll be happy to entertain any questions you might have on the website at this point, even though you probably haven't looked at it and don't have any.
I just gotta learn how to spell it.
He just spelled it for you, Steve.
It's writing fast.
Charlie, thank you for your shameless promotion.
And again, it's important because we know that's the prehistory of Punta Gorda, and also because we have it on a lot of our literature for the city.
And it is
As part
over
of it.
50
So
years old
I mean,
now,
it,
so.
it deserves the protection. It's there at
Yeah,
the
sure
A.C.
does.
Freeman House, and I think it's great that you're taking the lead here, Callie, to try to keep this. And it's really these days it's really irreplaceable value because the artist has put them in different places all over the United States, and we're lucky to be one of those places. So it's great to see your effort to try to maintain this work of art. So thank you.
Thank
Any other comments?
you. Let me know if the donate button works.
Okay, seeing no other comments and having completed our agenda, I call this meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, okay. It was nice meeting you.